Okay, good evening, everyone. Today we have a very, very special guest you've been demanding for long. So, Anubhav Karmakar, a wonderful friend and partner in crime. Once we used to run in Hyderabad. I remember the first turn we had me, Shankara, Anubhav. It was pretty dark in the morning once we started. And then since then, it's been an amazing journey knowing him. And best of all has been the progress he has made since the time we met him for the first time, because that was the time he was uh, into short runs, but then fast ones. He's always been a speed guy. That's what I've been asking him a few minutes back as well. So, welcome everyone and special guest for today, Anubhav Karmakar. Welcome to our show. So, we'll start with a 45 minutes of interaction, and then we'll have 10 to 15 minutes of question answer session. I'll request Anubhav to share his experiences. Now, we start with how it all started from before, during college days till now. Please share your journey. Over to you, Anubhav.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I talk about running was it came in much later in my, if I would to say, the fitness journey, right? I mean, when I was in college, when I was in B school, I was relatively, I would say, in the category of obese, and somewhere in the final few months of my course there. I realized that I need to sort of focus on, better living and health. So I started going to the gym and I started paying attention towards food, what I was consuming, and I tried to mend my life, to be very honest. Like, I think what I was doing is I was living and without thought, doing things without thought, and eventually it's a self-realization. I mean,
Right.
that if at a very young age,
Right.
uh, I was becoming unhealthy, right? And in fact, the doctor had given me a warning, saying that they had done a checkup during our days in college, and he had said that I shouldn't be consuming alcohol and non-veg because there was fatty infiltration in my liver. But
Okay.
that did not affect me or sort of prompt me to sort of make any changes. It was much later on in the when I realized it wasn't I would say a self-realization. It was not provoked from anywhere, and
Right.
I started to find a way which I would enjoy, which I thought was sustainable. So
Okay.
that is
Which
how
year
it
was
all
it?
started.
Just
This was
some idea about the year.
this was 2011,
Okay.
and yeah, and I had just I had just passed out, and then started working, and that's when I moved to Hyderabad, right?
Right.
And first couple of years in Hyderabad, again I was playing, I was going to the gym, I was relatively fit, but then I got bored of going to the gym, and and I wanted to find another way to stay fit, and that's how I discovered running. And I think it started with also a little bit of cycling. I
Right.
saw this. I was surfing the internet and I found this tour called the Mount MTB Himalaya, and that's when I
Right.
decided to buy a bicycle, and I went to the Himalayas. It was a 5-day tour, and that's how I got into endurance sports. Really, that's how I got introduced. And through cyclists, I found out about running, endurance running, and that's how I found out about Hyderabad runners. And then, of course, the very first day, I think it was a Sunday, a dark Sunday,
Right.
and I didn't even probably. I mean, it was dark enough to not sort of, probably uh, even see each other. That I think much later into the run, when the sunlight starts coming out, you really realize whom you're running with. Until then, you are unknown faces. I
Right.
still remember very fondly all the first set of runners, and I think that, I mean, I have to give credit to people, runners like you, right? And not just that, they have always drawn inspiration from Hyderabad runners, all the
Right.
runners out there. And you've also been one of my inspirations. I've always said so. And ever smiling Romil, always cheering us up. And yeah, that's how I got initiated. And it is through the journey of seeing other runners in Hyderabad runners that I realized that I didn't know about marathons until I had met Hyderabad runners. I didn't know it was possible to run 42 kilometers, and I was pretty amazed to see that regular people recreationally are training and running 42 kilometers, and
Right.
and I thought that that's a great challenge to take. And if so many other people are doing it, I should be able to do it. And I mean, that was I think my inspiration to start the journey. And then I never really thought about time or anything initially, as it is for most people, right? It's about completing the first full marathon, right? And I
Right.
think I signed up for Hyderabad Marathon. Unfortunately, I signed up for a tough marathon, very first
I
edition
know.
of my first attempt. Yeah. So a lot of lessons from the first marathon, from that journey. There's so much that you learn from your initial days of running. That's how it started off. 2013. That was 2013.
Right. So, I've seen you the way you said right now also. The first thing you did was a 5-day MTB tour without much of knowledge about all these training. Then first event you signed up was Airtel Hyderabad Marathon. Because I remember, I don't know if you remember or not, that was that event I was pacing for the full marathon. And I crossed somewhere around that Microsoft area. So that was the time I saw you, and I was like, come on, come on. Because that was, then I realized, this your first event, and he's doing Airtel Hyderabad full. Because that time you were totally new to the field and very, very Josh type, as we say in army. Full
Yeah.
pumped out. The first run also, the way you mentioned, we clearly remember. Me, I was there, Shankara was there, and you were there. So you were running, and me and Shankara were looking at each other. Who is this guy? Young guy, first day seen, and he's sprinting right from the day one. So it's been amazing journey, as you said. I mean, thanks for the kind
I
words, and it's yeah.
I remember very clearly looking at you guys and wondering why you guys are running so slow. It's much
Exactly.
later. It's much
Yeah.
later because I have never run long distance. I just felt
Right.
like if I can run 5 kilometers, I might as well run 20 kilometers. We just go about it 4 times, right? But
Exactly.
obviously, after I think 10 or 15 kilometers, I realized that what this is all about, and I learned my lesson on the first day one. And I remember you asking me, "Are you sure about what you're doing?" Yeah.
Correct.
So definitely, I think that is what happens, right? And I think your initial guidance is because that was my first day, and there was no one to tell me, right? And we were already along the
Right.
run. But I think that day, after finishing the run, it was a fellow runners who told me, what the approach should be and things like that. Of course, there was a long way to go. But there's so much that I've learned. My initial lessons have been there, and thereafter it generated interest in me, and I realized through the group that there is a process involved, right? And that is how I got initiated into the process, and I fell in love with the process actually, and so much that I wanted to know more about it, right? And I started digging as showing a lot of interest and trying to gather as much knowledge, and then and I saw how applying the process helps you become not only a better runner but also allows you to enjoy the process of training,
Right.
right? That it's not necessarily about suffering. There is challenge involved, but if you follow the right process, you can actually enjoy the whole journey. So that's
Right.
how I think, yeah, my first few lessons, yeah, and
No, but then
initiation was.
right. So from that day till now, everybody has improved, but then your improvement has been something unimaginable. Had somebody told me that day that this guy is going to run a 2:38 full marathon, nobody would have believed, leave alone me. So
Yeah,
how do you think? What was that approach that sets you apart? From no timing to timings like crazy timings. How
the
did it happen?
fact is, even I did not know that I would. In fact, I did not know or aim for something like this. Like even a couple of years back, if somebody had told me that I would do 38 or I should aim for something like that, I would have written myself off. It has always been one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Like I did not know that I could even do under 3 hours. I really at no point thought that I must do something like that. I always took one race after the other. In fact, I always cherish the fact that I was able to do every marathon that I did was little better than the previous one. I think an important part, I think one of the important factors has been to be objective. To really understand where you are today, and then that if you are following the same process, then you can get to in a given amount of time, right? To understand, I think to a great extent, understanding your own body, and what it allows you to do, and paying attention, to not only the knowledge to yourself, and how it's not, as I said, it's never like there's a formula to it, right? And that's why we call it a process, because you have to understand what your body is capable of doing, and what will work really well for you, right? So in the process of and necessarily it is the consistent training which teaches you these lessons. It teaches you about yourself. The more consistently you train, right, the more discipline you have, the more you're able to learn about yourself. So it is this self-learning process, right, that actually lets you understand what is it that you can do in a given period of time. So I never looked beyond. I never had goals like I want to do sub 3. I understood very early that it can be a pitfall sometimes, because you start aiming for something which you are not currently capable of doing. So let's say I'm capable of doing 3:05 or 3:10, but I am like, I'm so close to 3, so let me aim for it. So what happens is, when you do something like that, what I see where people generally face hurdles is that, in the process of training for something like that, they injure themselves. Or even when you go to races and then you fail to achieve your goals, that sometimes pulls you down. So I've always believed in incrementally pushing your limits, right? During the process of training, even in a race, incrementally move your goals up, and then you get immense satisfaction in being able to hit your goals, not only in the races but also in training. If you're able to execute your training, if you know what your training goal is on a given day, and if you're able to execute it to your level of, you're able to meet the plan, that you're able to comply to the plan, it gives you immense satisfaction. So I've always derived satisfaction from each and every workout that I've done. Like, I've always been careful about, planning something out which I can achieve. And, I feel disappointed when I'm not able to do something well in, training. And it's better to be disappointed in training rather than be disappointed, in the race day, or to overexert yourself and then throw yourself into a situation which kind of puts you away from what you love doing. So, if you overexert yourself, you will find it difficult to consistently train. You might end up injuring yourself. And I think it is these things which kind of become hurdles. And I think to a great extent, I've been able to stay injury free, and I've been able to consistently train, and that has allowed me. And I believe almost every runner has the potential to, do really, really well and keep, going through the process of continuous improvement if they are objective about, what they are doing. And I have always drawn inspiration from other recreational runners, right? People who are, let's say, much older than me, and yet are able to perform and continuously improve. And I have studied what is it what is the basic foundation which allows them to do so. And I've understood those tenets and tried to incorporate those, apart from, understanding other popular principles of training. And the thing is, every race that I've done, I have followed a different principle. Because eventually I got into coaching, so I kind of enjoyed the process of, I've always enjoyed the process of hit and trial. I have never told myself that just simply because this plan has worked out for me, I need to keep following it, because it's also what I enjoy doing. I enjoy exploring, different ways of training. It allows me to, I genuinely have that intrigue of finding out, what kind of this kind of workout or this type of principle, what does it feel like to do something like that? I mean, just to train like that, and not necessarily always about, reaching a certain goal. There are many ways of training. And there's a basic thing that they say about training is there as many ways of training as many different people, and even
Right.
even as a person, you can train in different ways and achieve the same objective. So that's primarily, you need to have that, you need to derive that sense of joy from what you're doing, and that's you need to have that sense of, I would say, exploration, and a
Right.
deep interest towards what you're doing, and love the challenge. And I think these have been some of the aspects which have allowed me to, stay motivated, and at the same time stay injury free and figure out things.
Right. So, Anubhav, that's a very, very good point. I like the way you said about hit and trial. What has brought you here may not take you forward as well, the same kind of plan. And what has
Yeah.
worked for Anubhav may not work for me, because, as you said, every individual is different. For each individual, the training plans can be different at different levels of running as well. So, that's a very good point. I think everybody must understand this, that these things. But then tell me, in your case, the way you said, it's not that you always targeted sub 3, but then once you got sub 3, it's been, always improving. But generally we see people, okay, we have done sub 3, it's fine, once in a lifetime. If you see others also, many people have this target, including me, that to have sub 3 sometime. In your case, it was not sub 3. It was never that you said sub 3 and then that's it. Because after sub 3, you've done many races consistently below sub 3. And what do you think? Because I remember once you mentioned about 238 also, you were not very happy with that, which was, I mean, crazy. Why would somebody not be very happy with the 238 timing? And you've done well, and you've done. What was the reason?
No, because I am not happy, not because 230 is not a great number. I was not happy because I knew I could do better than 238. Because I knew if I was able to execute the way I would have wanted to, I could. And essentially, what happened in that race was, we were kind of slowed down in the final 6 kilometers because of the crowd, and I also had sprained my leg a couple of days before the race, so I was not able to execute. So the thing is, I'm already pretty certain before when I'm at the start line as to what I'm capable of achieving, and that if I'm able to execute my plan as per my, if I'm able to sort of follow what I have planned out for myself, right, and which is what happened on that day. I was able to, in spite of the sprain, I was able to follow to the T what I had planned out. But I never expected to meet, to get caught up in the crowd. So that is why I was disappointed. So I was definitely aiming for, 237 or 36, and that, and some people will say it's just a minute, but that is what, right? It's about the satisfaction of being able to meet your plan. It's not the number. I never had for me, you ask why even after sub 3 I was able to go ahead, is because sub 3 never meant anything to me. It's just another number. It's 180 minutes. 186 minutes is as good as 180, is as good as 174. The way I look at it. So I've never had a fixation towards 3 hours, and even when I broke 3 hours, I did not know that. I was happy to have done that, but I did not know how much further I could go. So and I've never thought, like, now that I've broken 3, I need to do 245. That was not the case. I did a 252 and then went to 245 and then 241 and then 238. So looked at everywhere what my last performance is like and how much time I have until the next race, and then objectively understanding what is possible,
Right.
in that given time period. So I think to a great extent, I'm very happy with the fact that I'm able to sort of draw those goals objectively and correctly,
Right.
and because of which I'm able to also train at the right intensity, and follow the right process. And once you are able to do that, right, if you're not overdoing things, half the battle is won.
So I'm okay on this point. I'll let me tell you. once you broke to 3 also, see, we don't know what's going in your mind, what is your potential, because for us it's been a shocking thing, 238, 241, these numbers don't, for normal people like us, it would not make much sense. How come you're improving one after the other? And I remember reading your post, you used to be very, very upbeat, next race I'm preparing, I'll do this. And then other things I've seen is that, your training runs also very, very intense. How do you manage the training runs at such high intensities?
Uh, Not necessarily. I mean, the training runs, whatever I do, are by plan. I mean, it's not like I go out hard. I know exactly. It's very chalked out that and as I told you, like it has changed over time. There was a time when I would not do as many intense runs, right? And but I've realized with my improvement as an athlete, I'm capable of training at a higher intensity. So it's a natural movement. I mean, that happens. Like anybody who would be training for, a goal which is challenging will eventually move
Right.
to higher training intensities. There could be different approaches. There could be a different mix of runs. But as far as I understand, my runs are not very, very high on intensity. They have a good mix of intensity. It's
Right.
never beyond 30% to 20%. It's always intensity is always. Some people might feel that I've always generally heard this comment when people look at my easy runs. They say your easy runs are at very high pace, but
Exactly.
yeah, it's not like it's a relative thing. Like I need to
Exactly.
be,
Same.
but it's a pace that I'm comfortable at.
True.
So,
I mean, so,
but at the same time, as you move up, as you start, I mean, of course, you know, your volume goes up, right? Your volume of training goes
right.
up with time, and it goes up because not because I need to achieve a higher, time goal. It's because I have progressed from to that volume. I mean, there was a time when I was, for
True.
the longest time, I would not be training more than 50 to between somewhere between 50 to 80 kilometers. And
Okay.
I've slowly progressed to 100, 120, 130 kilometers per week. But I still have contemporaries who perform at almost, at the same level as I do, but are kind of training almost 200 kilometers per week, right? Now, it's very, very tempting to sort of think that, since somebody who is at the same level is training 200 kilometers and obviously is doing it in order to improve further, it might be tempting to think that I also need to run 200 kilometers per week. But the thing is, I've only done
Right.
130, 140 kilometers so far. So as tempting as it might be, it would be a big disaster if I was to move to 200 kilometers right away. I will eventually probably get to it. I don't know. I might be
Okay.
able to train at that volume. But the thing is, even if it is necessary, I cannot do it because I have not taken the steps in between. So I somewhere need to reach 150,
True.
160 kilometers per week before I can get. So you have to keep that in mind because obviously as an athlete, you are observing what others are doing. I myself are very inquisitive. I'm looking at, what the experts are suggesting, what the contemporaries are doing, right? Because there's a lot of
Right.
lessons that you can learn from your peers. But it's very important to understand yourself before you go and apply any of it. So as I said, it's important to know the principles and have the knowledge, but also you have to sort of understand the process before you apply it. So that's the critical aspect.
Great. Okay, Anubhav, now we'll take a break and we'll go to the things before you started serious running, the transition from a corporate to a runner full time. How did it happen? What were the thoughts that time?
Right. I mean, the way I've always thought about it is like I used to be a consultant and I'm still a consultant. It's just that I'm consulting for something else. It's just that I used to
Right.
work for somebody else and I now work for myself and I kind of enjoy the freedom that it brings along and the fact that I'm working on aspects which I have genuine intrigue about. Uh, Having said that, it's not that I didn't enjoy my previous job. I did invest a lot of time and energy to sort of get into that sort of a career, and I was enjoying the success that I was getting in that career. At the same time,
Okay.
I was enjoying running, and I was enjoying it a lot more than probably the
Anubhav,
joy.
just one sec. We are not getting a video correctly. Can you just switch off the video and start it again? Because I think there's some issue. Yeah, thanks. You can go ahead with whatever you're saying because the video will come automatically. Yeah, no, it's fine. Thanks.
Yeah, because I'm not able to see anything actually. The video,
Oh,
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are able to see me because as such, I see everything is blank. So I'm not sure. But as long as
oh,
you guys are able to see me, I'm cool.
yeah, we are able to do that.
Yeah. So
Everything is
just
clear
let
now.
me. Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
let me
sure.
know in case. Yeah, because I don't see anything. So I'm just
Okay,
assuming that. Yeah.
right,
So yeah, so what I was saying is that so obviously, I definitely enjoyed running a lot, and I the other thing which happened is I was self-coached all through, right? So and I was able to do that because I spent a lot of time, studying these things, and I had a genuine interest towards this thing. So I had, as a result, gained, let's say, some amount of expertise, and there was, I could see amongst other runners, there was this, I could see that opportunity there where people really wanted somebody to be able to guide them. Uh,
right,
but I was not capable of doing that while I was still pursuing my consulting career because it was a demanding career. It would involve travel and it would involve long hours of work. So it was not possible to spend time on my career and on my own running and the travel which came along with the job and the travel which came along with the sport and at the same time coach. So that's where I decided like there is an opportunity, there is something I'm genuinely interested in, and it's a journey that I would like to pursue. It would involve some amount of sacrifice, but the thing is, I definitely figured that the joy which this would bring me is more significant than all the other luxuries that came along with the other consulting career. Uh, so, I mean that those are some of the factors which sort of push me towards quitting my previous career and starting off as a coach. Right,
correct.
and
Okay, now, yeah, please.
no, and yeah, I mean, I still feel it's a fairly fresh journey. There's a long way to go.
True, true. That's very nice. And it's great to see like this. Tell me another thing. The moment we met that time, I used to see you cycling a lot and winning a lot of cycling races in Hyderabad. But then slowly I realized the love for cycling was getting shifted to running slowly, slowly, podiums and one after the other. How come this transition from cycling being the primary love to running?
Truth is, cycling is still my primary love. I still enjoy cycling a lot
Okay,
more because
okay,
so you know what? When I finished my Berlin marathon, I immediately went to and picked up a bike in Germany. I had actually booked the bike while I was in India, and it was all part
right,
of the plan. Just to finish the race, get a new bike. I was very excited about that in particular, and then I went off to France and spent 5 6 days just riding in the mountains. There was no
right,
competition, there was no prize to win, there were no targets to hit. It was just the sheer joy of being able to, uh, you know, uh, cycle and at the same time travel, see
right.
new places, go up mountains. As a runner, it's difficult to go, hundreds of kilometers, right? Whereas the bike allows you to sort of
True.
really go such long distances. So definitely there are aspects about cycling which are irreplaceable. And that's why cycling still continues to feature. I still, spend at least, 7,000, 5,000 to 7,000 kilometers of cycling in a year primarily because and it's not as I said and that goes to show that it's all about how much you enjoy something like I'm definitely since I'm not dedicated myself towards cycling and as such if you look at cycling competitions I'm saying the national level athletes right they are completely dedicated towards cycling so it is going to be very difficult for me to go and beat them I mean the best of the best uh,
Right.
who are dedicated themselves. There are a lot of people, cyclists that I know, who have also quit their jobs and are pursuing professional cycling. So eventually, when I go into these races, and I do go into them, knowing very well that I probably will not win, but I enjoy the challenge, and I enjoy the process of preparing for it, and so eventually I get better at cycling. I enjoy the process, so I have no complaints. So even though I know I cannot win, it's still a very enjoyable process. So my primary motivation, I know my mind, my heart is in the right place, so I'll never be disappointed.
Right. Okay, because I remember once you were in Hyderabad also, that time you used to go very often to Bangalore, Nandi Hills, and then you have that BBCH Bangalore Bicycle Championship or something. You, Gaurav Duggal, Aman also. Yeah, 3 cyclists I remember seeing 3 of you together a lot of times.
Yeah, I still participate in those races. In fact, last June I participated in a 160-kilometer race. Although I was not training. Yeah, so this was in between, let's say, I think Boston and New York, right? So I actually took time off running. Yeah, and took some time off running. I mean, I was still running a little bit, but I was focused a little more on cycling because I need to prepare for 160-kilometer race. And these are against the other riders are like Naveen John and Kiran Kumar. Each one of them is the national champion in their respective areas of cycling, mountain biking and road biking. So it's going to be tough competition. So, but I kind of enjoyed, because I like training. I wanted to, give it a go, and I still look forward to the Nandi Hills races. Unfortunately, last year was my first year ever since I started cycling that I did not do the Nandi Hills race because I was in New York. I was, running the New York Marathon. So I actually regret having missed it. I somehow wish that I could have managed both of them. I just love. I mean, even if I've always finished, 4th and 5th. I've always yearned to finish on the podium. But I always end up finishing 4th and 5th because when the last push comes, I kind of, I find myself lacking because, I have not trained to the extent the other people have because they are focused on cycling, right? But I am not disappointed in the end because I love putting myself into that challenge.
Right. No, in fact, I would like to tell the viewers as well, morning once we were discussing, me and Anubhav, that why did he shift to Bangalore? Sole reason he said was that he's able to train better there because that's crazy. Somebody shifting to another location just because he's able to train well, because in Hyderabad, you're not able to cycle properly in the ORR, you're not permitted, and you are able to do that in Bangalore. So, that level of craziness is actually required.
No, even when I was working in Deloitte, right, I used to travel on the weekends to Bangalore. Or there was a time when I used to travel every weekend. I used to pack my bag. A lot of times, initially I used to drive down by myself, drive up and down.
Right.
And then I realized it's becoming a little too much. So then I started taking the bus, right? In fact, the last 4 years, I can tell you, until the last race of New York. New York was the only race where I did not travel with my bike. Because all other times I've either gone with my bike or I've come back with the bike. The bike always travels with me. Whether I've been to the Europe, every time I've traveled, even when I was used to travel for my job, my first trip to Switzerland, I picked up a bike on the way back. And the second trip, when I went for the Berlin Marathon, again I picked up a bike back. When I went for the Boston race, again I picked up a bike back on the way back. So I've always, I've gone for different purposes, but the bike is always involved. And it's only the last race in New York where I did not, carry a bike along with me. But the bike has always been part of the journey, and it is a little bit of a hassle to, moving in the airport and, moving things across, and especially if you're traveling a lot. So this time when I went to New York, I actually went to San Francisco. I wanted to travel a lot more. I went to Los Angeles. So I really decided, let's give it a break. Let's explore other things as well this time. So because when the bike is along with you, right, it really limits your mobility. There is a lot more that you cannot see.
Obviously.
But yeah, I would any day, take the bike along with me.
Okay, this intrigues me. How many bikes you have? Because I remember you winning few bikes in races as well.
Yeah. There was a time I used to have like 5-6 bikes, and I eventually sold a lot of them. But yeah, cycles, I've been keep churning through cycles. Currently, I have 4 bikes. I definitely need to offload some of them. So I still have a bicycle in Hyderabad. When I visit Hyderabad, I have a indoor trainer there and I have a cycle there. So
Right.
that way,
Great.
I still visit Hyderabad very frequently. In fact, until last year, I was practically splitting my time between Hyderabad and Bangalore. This year,
Okay.
unfortunately, because of in fact, even before the lockdown, I was actually in Hyderabad for a while.
Okay.
So yeah, I have friends in Hyderabad, and Hyderabad. I have not really left Hyderabad. I kind of, in a way, have been splitting my time because I'm generally traveling. So
Right.
most of the time, primarily in Bangalore, but a significant amount of time in Hyderabad, and the rest of the time I'm traveling for races. So that's why
Right.
it makes sense for me to have a bike there so that I can go out and ride there.
Absolutely. So a lot of people who are listening to this must understand, that it's not just the timings which or gives us a big shock, but then there are a lot of other things. The kind of training he's doing, the kind of cycling you're doing, and the running, absolutely. And the way you said, it's all relative. What I feel is that he's been pushing a lot during training runs doesn't mean you actually are doing. So that's all relative once you see the kind of timing he's doing. So that's one side.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah, you can't
Okay,
punish
Anubhav.
yourself. It's like a lot of times it looks like oh, a lot of times people say, "So you push yourself so much, you're punishing yourself so much." I mean,
Absolutely.
if I ever felt like I'm not enjoying it or punishing myself, it's not possible to continue consistently. It's not possible, and if you don't enjoy it, it's very very difficult to continue doing it, and as a result, it's very difficult to continue progressing. So you have to be true to yourself, and that is why I used to do triathlons, and then at some point, I decided that I don't want to juggle between three sports, and for the time being, I never said that I'm not going to do triathlons. I might eventually get back to triathlons, but then I decided, I'm enjoying cycling and running, and I want to stick to this for now. So I've always taken a decision based on what I would enjoy doing, because if that is very very critical, because if you stop enjoying, uh, it's difficult to sustain it.
Right, that's right. Absolutely. So, do you think, cross training has really helped you in your running? That cycling, the lot of cycling which you do,
So
one
it
is
is
cardio, otherwise, does it help?
it is complementary, but I'll tell you, like when I start training seriously for a marathon now, these days, I actually cut down on my cycling a lot, because you, at this point of time, I do need a lot of volume. So if I want to hit 140 kilometers, 130 kilometers per week, I just don't have any more hours left to, I don't have any more energy left. I'm just too fatigued to even go out and ride. So obviously, if you are spending 100% of your time on running, you will definitely see a lot more improvement in running. Cross training is good in the sense when you have time, but you do not have the ability to, put in more miles in your legs. Because, as I said, like for example, I said, I would want to do 200 kilometers, but I can only do 130 kilometers, right? So before I can bridge the gap between 130 and 200, I might want to fit in a little bit of cycling. That would help me bridge the gap further. But having said that, if you have the ability to do 200, you would rather do 200. You would see a lot more improvement in running. So because cross training does help, let's say from the perspective of if you're not recovering well enough from if you're
Right.
just following running, right? But if you can recover through your recovery runs, through other methods, that there are different stretches and methods to sort of ensure your recovery, right? If you are able to recover well enough to be able to execute your plan the way satisfactorily, then there is no need for cross training. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying you should or you should not. You have to evaluate whether it fits in well into your plan. For a lot of amateur athletes, especially when you start off, it makes a lot of sense to do cross training.
Correct.
But then,
Absolutely.
and then over time, you are in a place, you're in a position to, do away with the cross training and just focus on the running and still make progress and without getting injured.
So, Anubhav, tell me this now. Somebody who is young and who wants to start training and follow your path, what changes would you make? I mean, if somebody takes you a few years back, once you started running to now, what things you should have done to have which you think you made mistakes and you could have been a better runner not doing it, or you should have done those things. If you can tell me as a coach, as a runner, based on your experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a lot of mistakes I made. I think the first mistake I made is I jumped directly into a full marathon. You know, my
Right.
very first event is full marathon. I never tried out anything in between, like a shorter distance. Like I should have probably started off with 10K races. I think I would have enjoyed that first year of running a lot more. So although I'm not regretting anything, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I feel it could have been a better, and I probably might have progressed faster. Like I think I lost a lot of,
Right.
I got, I did see, I still was progressing, but I don't think so I enjoyed it as much as I enjoy it now. My first year was a little bit of suffering, and I kind of
Yeah.
assumed that suffering is part of the journey. I was just going about it because I knew others are doing it. And I kind of also saw a lot of others were suffering and they say, if they can do it, I can do it too. But I think that's the wrong approach. I
Right.
later realized that you can continue progressing uh, while you're enjoying it and you're just challenging yourself and not suffering. So there's a difference between the first year. It's like I did suffer. I did go through a lot of pain, unnecessary pain, because I jumped because the first day there was no one to tell me on day one, right? Because you don't know each other, right?
Correct.
And then people, take the liberty to tell you. So I think that needs to be there. It's like that awareness needs to be created, and I think that is happening a lot. That is happening at a much better. I think that the awareness is much higher now, right? Because even there are so many different things that have come into place right now. Right? There are so many experts available. There are so many trading groups available. So the awareness level is much higher. But also, I don't want to say that I'm not to blame. I should have probably put in some thought into it. I shouldn't have taken a lot of things lightly, right? It's a little bit about. What marathons have taught me is that this is essentially about patience, right? It's about
Right.
knowing that it is one step at a time, and that if you are not uh, going to be patient, right, you are definitely going to suffer, right, and you are not going to be able to enjoy the process.
Sure.
So, patience is a virtue, and you really learn that through training, and through pursuing the sport. That's one of the biggest lessons.
Right. Which Anubhav, I'm sure everybody listening to this would surely like to know, once you've said it's patience, how to improve speed. One is patience, that's understood. You need to take time to get into that kind of speed. But then a lot of time you see people training very, very seriously. I mean, I will not say very seriously, but then they're still training a lot, but then still not able to get into the timings which they aspire for. So what do you suggest for steps to be taken to increase the speed?
Yeah. So thing is, it is related to what I said earlier. So, of course, as I said, there are many ways of approaching it. Speed is not just about doing a lot of speed work or pushing yourself. The thing is, it's not about
Right.
pushing your limits. It's actually about knowing your limits, right? First process is to find out what is your current limit, right? Once you find, this is what a lot of people don't do. They first set a goal and they chase that goal. So they push themselves to that limit, right? Whereas the
Right.
process that one must follow is to find out what is your current limit right now, and then incrementally push that limit a little bit, right? And keep doing it, and then you will keep seeing improvement. So it's not about achieving a certain speed; it's about achieving a better speed than where you are today, right? That is the first step, right? And thereafter, once you understand where your current limit is, then you'll be able to understand, okay, that, okay, let's say I can do 2 hard workouts, or I can at this point of time do only 1 hard workout. Even within that, which phase of training you are, how much running you've been doing in the past few weeks or the past few days, which allows you to do a certain kind of volume and certain kind of intensity. So it's basically about understanding that. It's not about, just following a plan blindly. It's about following the process and making a plan based on that process, making a plan based on your limitations, right? So first
Right.
address skill level issues, right? Address,
Absolutely.
if there is something which you're lacking in terms of skill, because if you're going to try and push beyond what your skills allow you to, you might be doing a very hard workout, you might be putting in a lot of effort, but you are not addressing the bottleneck. So that is the nature of
Right.
bottlenecks, right? No matter what you do, they will not allow you to go beyond a certain level, right? So you need
Absolutely.
to open up the bottleneck, and those bottlenecks are essentially your limitations. So there could be skill level limitations. It could be, you could identify something in terms of nutritional level, something you're lacking on there. So you have to basically figure out either, by through introspection or by, reaching out to an expert who can help you explore these things.
True. No. So that's a very, very good point. And many times people aspire to do a sub 3 not realizing where they are. So there's no point if you aspire for a particular time in a training plan, not realizing where you are at present. So it's better to start from where you are rather than where you want to be. So that's a
Correct.
Absolutely great point.
Yeah, because the number just is partially the truth, right? The number is, first of all, it is important, but there is so much beyond the number, right? There's the whole process. So the whole mix of things, right? I mean, you know that in order to achieve a certain kind of number, that number, first of all, should not be a random number. It should be based on where your current level is. Second of all,
Absolutely.
you have to see that because you have certain limitations, you cannot do certain kind of workout, right? You might not be capable of, although your plan might say, you might pull out a plan from somewhere which says you need to do this. But the thing is, you have never subjected yourself to certain kind of intensity or certain kind of fatigue and stress, and you're suddenly exposing yourself to it, right? And that might throw you off. So you might be putting in a lot of effort, but it's getting dissipated and it's not getting channelized. So it only gets channelized if you understand yourself, your current capabilities.
Right. So Anubhav, before we take the questions from the people, one last question. What is a typical training week in your training regime? How do you train on a normal week once you're training for an event? What would it be?
So, I mean, it has changed significantly over the years. I mean, there was a time I used to train, let's say, 5 days a week. To now, when I'm very close to my race, right, I'm training 7 days a week, right? But I was not able. So again, when I'm saying this, I'm throwing in a word of caution. There was a time when it was impossible to train beyond 5 days a week. So, but now I can train 7 days a week. But when I say train 7 days a week, it does not necessarily mean I'm doing a lot of quality workout. It's a lot of easy runs in between. It's essentially 2 quality workouts, at the max 3 sometimes if you include a long run as a quality workout. But if you're looking at high intensity sessions which are working towards a certain goal, like it could be a skill level, interval, or it could be working on tempos and cruise intervals, right? Those kind of workouts would be twice in a week, right? Depending on where I'm placed in terms of my race. And once the race is done, again, I go back to just easy running. I'm just not even bothered about, what pace I am. But surprisingly, you'll see that the pace turns out to be pretty much because that's my natural rhythm, right? There is a natural rhythm that your body can easily run. But then, even the easy runs, there can be variation. That some days, like especially after you've done a hard workout, you'll notice the same easy run has a much lower pace. So the easy running range is a very big range. So depending on how fatigued you are, you kind of move within that range, right? So there's nothing hard and fast about it. I mean, a lot of times I don't follow the plan. Like I have a plan, but I realize that, it is becoming a little too intense. Sometimes I even stop a workout in between because I believe it's better to sort of listen to your body than just blindly stick to it and it does not indicate if you're not following the plan, if you're not able to complete a workout, it does not it is not against, it is not going to act against you, or it is in no way reflecting on your determination, right? If you have gone out there, if you've woken up and stepped out, you are determined enough. You have to be prudent enough to understand that, I'm not capable of doing this today. And this is in no way a reflection of your determination. So I keep telling people, differentiate between being adamant and being determined. If you're getting out of the house, out of the door every day, or, if you're following, I'm not saying every day, but if you're able to follow the plan, if you're getting, if the plan says go out and run today, and if you're going to step out, you are determined. You don't have to prove yourself every time on a training day. You should be able to do, they should be challenging, but at the same time, they shouldn't push you into suffering.
True. So, I would like everybody to understand, it's good to have a plan, but then you need not follow that plan being its slave. You don't have to be slave of your training plan. You have to see what your body is, how your body is responding. So if you have a bad recovery after the last run because of your office work, or you've been extremely busy, it doesn't mean you need to go for a interval or hard workout just because your plan says so. So got to use your head as at times. Just don't be listening to your plans always. So we'll take the questions now. So there's a question which says that. So this question is which says that by Kavita Nair. She wants to know that during your training run, do you give your 100% on your training runs, or you keep it 100% for your race day? How do you answer to that?
So I mean, so a lot of times I'm actually racing in between my training, and that has changed over time. I race a lot more now than I used to, because those are essentially part of the plan itself. Like they are kind of like workouts, right? So if it is a B level race, if it's not my primary race, if it's a B level race, I'm obviously not able to give my 100%, and obviously the rest of the training week or the training runs before the race or the week before that are obviously fatiguing me, and it is not possible for me to give me my 100%. So I don't go to every race at 100%, but I go to my A race at 100%. So I definitely make sure that I taper, and when I go into an A race, I am at the motive is to be as less fatigued and be as fresh as possible, so that the fitness that I've built over the period can get reflected. So it depends on what kind of a race. If it's a C race, I really don't have any strict goals. I just go at it as an experience to sort of pick up some stress, as to sort of try out few things, like a lot of I would experiment around nutrition and hydration and things like that. If it's a B race, then there would be certain amount of goals that I would like to achieve, but then those goals would definitely not be at 100%. Like I would fine tune them to at a place which can be done, and I do not hamper the rest of my training, because even after I do a B race, I have to get back to training again the next week, right? So which is also very critical. So definitely not pushing. So I set up a conservative goal itself, so that way I am never tempted to push myself to 100%. So once you tell yourself that, right, that you're not going to push yourself 100%, that kind of protects you from causing any damage, so that the primary race is not affected and the training towards the primary race is not affected. So that is, you have to set your priorities. So that is the number one thing, is to set up your priorities and tell yourself very clearly, this is not important. I don't care what happens in this race.
Okay, nice. Okay, next question is, I've also seen you running. There's another guy, Sachin. He's saying that Anubhav runs on his toes, which I've seen you run mostly on 4-foot kind of a thing. So is it a deliberate effort? Is it natural, or you've trained yourself to be running like that?
So the thing is, it does not really matter. In fact, I used to run a lot more 4-footed, and I'm actually started going a lot off, because what I realized is it was putting a lot of stress on my calves actually. So definitely I've made a deliberate attempt to become a lot more mid-footed, and and it is not by I'm not targeting to sort of land on a certain portion of my foot. What I have constantly been working upon is a better free a better running form, and that essentially means where your foot lands with respect to the rest of your body, and not where you land on your foot. So you have to be able to run in a way which allows your body's natural spring mechanism to absorb the shocks. So if you are too 4-footed, what happens is it puts stresses on your foot structure, right? And it does not allow the transfer to happen to the ankle. It does not allow the transfer to happen to your hips, right? So it's not essentially a great thing. I mean, everybody has their own natural way of running, so they will be landing on different parts. But what is important is whether you are using your body's natural shock absorbing mechanisms, which is just essentially the ankle and the hip joints. Are you able to sort of align yourself in a way which allows you to absorb the shock? So my focus has always been towards that, and as a result of which, I think I have actually started moving from 4-foot towards mid-foot. A lot of time it looks 4-footed, but if you look closely, you would realize, because I look at the wear and tear pattern of my shoes, it's really it's close to the ball of the foot, but it's not really striking on the foot. On the toes, really. So you can't run long distance on your toes.
Okay.
It
Okay.
will just
Next,
put too much stress. Yeah, sorry.
right. So next, no, fine. Chaitra wants to know that you realized running and the benefits a bit late because you were working in a corporate. Then you, as you said, you started cycling and running. You started enjoying so much, and then you picked up from there like no one else. So do you think was it a natural thing or acquired skill, or is it a blend of both natural as well as acquired because of hard work?
I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, it's difficult for me to say if it came naturally to me. But I definitely would say that to a great extent, I've applied myself, right, uh, into it. Like I had a deep interest. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think it all sometimes boils down to how badly you want something, right? I want to
True.
get out and run. I want to do my workouts. I enjoy my workouts. I mean, if I look at it, I mean, I've had anatomical issues. I have a flat foot, right? Because of which initially I had a lot
Okay.
of problems. But I was like, let me figure out what I can do because it's not necessary that if you have a flat foot or an anatomical issue, you cannot progress without getting injured. So initially, I would get a lot of shin splints and stuff like that, and then I figured, I need to do certain things off running to strengthen those aspects, right? So there will always be, I think, the human body is sort of designed to be able to endure, lot movement, but a lot of times because of poor posture and bad habits, we lose that art of moving properly, right? So I think if one focuses on that, it's definitely possible. I'm not saying that you would achieve this level, or I'm not bring it in terms of numbers. It's definitely possible to keep improving, you know. Uh,
Right.
and that's why even now I don't think like I have to achieve. A lot of people ask me, so where do you think you're going to get to? I don't know. I just know that what I'm going to do in my next race. That's the end of it,
Okay.
right? Once I cross that finish line, I'm going to contemplate what's next, right? Until then, I'm not even thinking. So I really don't know where I can get to and whether I just, I'm living in the now, and I know like with every workout that I do, I know that I'm improving. I'm kind of aware because I'm involved in it. So I think it's a lot of times it's your involvement which tells you whether you are capable of doing something or not, right? And I definitely
Great.
feel most human beings, if they were to sort of get to down to the basics, right? If they were to apply themselves, they definitely should be able to progress in a journey of continuous improvement.
Great. Okay, Anubhav, one question. It's a long answer, but then I would request you to finish in 2 minutes. Nutrition. You can go on
Yeah,
and on, but then
yeah.
any
I don't.
specific thing which,
I generally my answers on nutrition are very short because it's just too specific. Like as against running, nutrition is way too specific. It depends on your genetic makeup and things like that. It's again, you have to sort of figure out what works well for you and what does not, right? But my
right,
general guideline is what my nutrition has changed with time, right? It's still changing. It has changed over the lockdown. I have been able to fine tune it further and further. The general direction that I'm following is eat as much as natural and whole food as possible. It's as simple as that. Make sure you're getting
absolutely.
your fruits, getting your vegetables, getting your carbs, and avoid as much processed food as possible. And when I say processed food, that includes juice, that includes atta, maida, all of it is some form of processing or the other. So I have continuously kept moving towards more and more whole food. As little processing in the factory, as little processing in the in the kitchen, right? So let's
Right,
say whole rice, red rice, brown rice, whole oats, quinoa, right? These are a lot more whole and less processed than, let's say, if you're having bread or if you're having roti, which is generally involves a lot of processing in the factory and then finally at your home. So I have been constantly progressing in that direction, and sometimes you might feel because you read somewhere that this and this is needed for an athlete to perform, but with time you realize that a lot of the natural food that is available is just sufficient. And sometimes because
correct,
when your training is at a very high level, like for example in a race you need electrolytes, right? If you're running in a hot humid conditions you need more electrolytes, right? So there are
Correct.
times of the year where I don't consume as much electrolytes, but when the summers come in, I am consuming a lot more electrolytes for the same amount of training. So those things
True.
you have to factor in, right? So which is becoming a little sports specific, right? But if you're not getting enough, if you're deficient in multivitamins and things, in vitamins and those kind of deficiencies, then you need to supplement it. But otherwise, to a great extent, you should be able to try and fulfill those needs by eating a lot better and eating less processed food.
Great. Okay, now we'll request everyone to please switch on the videos. We'll have a quick photograph and then we can close it. Anubhav, it's been amazing. So I'm sure everybody would have come to know that what all things are required if you want to improve. I'll not commit on any numbers based on what you have taught us today. But then, there are a lot of efforts which go behind, be it cycling, be it running, be it the nutrition, be it the kind of craziness which is required. And I can see that. I've seen an old photograph the first time I saw you, plus the previous photographs, chubby Anubhav, to the present morning. Once I saw you, everything inside. So I'm sure the intensity and the kind of commitment you have, it's not possible for everyone to do that, but then you can always strive for that. And then when last question, what's your next number you don't like, but then still, what's your next target?
It depends on when the race is, honestly. Like, I was definitely looking at something under 235 if I was to be racing in Boston, but that has not happened.
Right.
So it all depends on when the next race is, and this point is very difficult. So this is how my mind is. Like, I am not thinking about a race right now. I am just going out and running and cycling. There is no point, because until and unless you're sure, you just need to maintain your there is no point in keeping that number in mind. So again, when you think there is a little more clarity, I am going to make an objective assessment of where I am right now and not like what my previous plan was, because that might not be true. Maybe I've lost a little bit of fitness. So I will look at it objectively again, month after month. And then somewhere close to the race, I will decide, it looks like this is achievable.
Great. So Anubhav, immense thanks. Personally, you've been a great motivation always. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks everyone. I'm sure you had a great time.
Thank you so much.
Keep revising.
So much for inviting me. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you everybody for joining. I hope you all are taking care of your health. I hope everybody is happy and healthy.
Thanks, okay. Bye bye everyone. Good night. Jai Hind.
Thank you everyone. Bye.